Hey everybody, Shane and Eric here in the Rick team. We are in Rancho Cucamonga right now. I'm at a fire class this week, and Eric drove down to meet me, so we're gonna record a little bit. So um, tonight we're just gonna kind of dive into something that came up. Actually, it came up today. A friend of mine called me, and he's been going through some stuff. So he asked me a question that I've been giving some thought all day, and then Eric. It's funny, it dovetailed into some stuff that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, so the question that I got was, how do you stay resilient day to day when you're helping all these people? Like all these people are calling us and texting us and emailing us about, the shots and the health programs, the center of excellence, wellness, everything, you name it, right? Um, and, and, to the outside person, it looks easy. They just think it's like really simple for us to do that with, um, kind of that balancing act. I mean, we're both working jobs, we both have lives, families, friends, all that stuff. And so I thought that was an interesting question. And my answer to him at first was kind of just like, hey, man, it's like a daily grind where you just have to constantly pay attention and make sure I'm in balance. And, I keep in perspective that I'm trying to help somebody, but I don't want to take all their stuff on and absorb it kind of thing. I'm just kind of trying to give them a playbook of steps that they could kind of sort through, see what feels good for them, what
How do you
feels
not
right.
absorb it?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of something that we talked about was it's hard for me because I'm an empath, turns
Yeah.
out, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm a highly sensitive person. So
What?
yeah. Um and so that is definitely a challenge for me because I don't like my friends or people that I talk to suffer. I don't like them I don't like it when they're sad, when they're hurt, when they're lost, when all these negative things are going on. I want to fix it. I mean, by nature, I want to fix things. And so I actually gave him an example today that I think I've said it on our podcast before. I know you and I have talked about it, but it's the sifter example where when I was at the Center of Excellence, there was this badass clinician, and I walked in this classroom, and we had this moment. I don't know if you've ever walked in a room and just instantly like vibed with somebody, but I walked in and I could just feel her presence. I think she could feel mine. We both kind of instantly looked at each other, kind of did a little head nod, like "What's up?" And
Yeah.
and throughout the class, I was enthralled. I mean, her presentation, her delivery, everything, she was phenomenal. I mean, the way she delivered the class, and so really resonated with a lot of stuff she said. And then when it was all done, at the end of the class, she walked up to me. She was this cool black chick from the South, man. Her name was Tawaka. She was,
Sick.
if by chance, if ever she were to hear something like this, you were the bomb, girl. I hope hope you know that. And, but everybody loved her, and she was one of those people that just, she's a master of her craft. She was a clinician and she was a master of her craft. And she walked up to me and she's like, "What's up, boy? How you doing with being an empath?" And I hadn't said a word to her. She hadn't said a word to me. She just taught the class. And I started laughing. I go, how do you know that? And she starts laughing. She's like, "This is what I do. Of course I know that, And I said, "Yeah, I just found out, I go, "I'm still trying to learn what that means." And so I go, "How did you know?" And she goes, "'Cause I'm an empath." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she goes, "You didn't feel that when you walked in the room?" And I said, "No, I felt it." And she goes, "Yeah, that's what, when you're walking in a room and there's other empaths, you guys feel each other." And I was just like, huh. And I was still kind of struggling to like reconcile some of the stuff in my head, like, yeah, okay, hippie.
What? Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
That's actually,
Typical
yeah.
fireman thing. And, but it was real what she was talking about. And then so she talked about a few other things, we were just discussing things. And then, I said, yeah, I go, the thing I got to figure out is how to not, like take on everybody else's shit for them, and let them dump it on me. And I go, cause I feel like I've always been the rock for people, in my family, in my close group of friends. I mean, most of my friends are pretty solid, so, but regardless, and so this is what she told me, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, okay, well, because that's what I said. I said, I feel like a sponge sometimes, and I said, and I know a sponge can only hold so much water, right, before it's got to get squeezed out. And I said, and I thought I used to squeeze the sponge out. I said, I thought I'd fill up with stuff, and then, okay, I'd go scuba diving, I'd go sail to an island, I'd go fly to some other country And that was, I'd go hike a mountain. And so, yeah, okay, I'm getting away. I'm, doing something cool, whatever. And I said, so to me, that was the reset, right? Like that's me clearing the sponge.
Yeah.
And she gets this little shit-eating smirk on her face, and I go, what? And she goes, well, can you ever really clear a sponge? And I was just like, well, yeah, you squeeze it out, if you really wring it out and you dry it out. And she's like, okay. She goes, let me explain it like this. She goes, do you know what a magic eraser is? And I said, yeah. And she goes, okay. So for anybody out there that doesn't, right, we know it's that really bright white sponge. You go tear it open, the package, it's just really, really bright white, and you can go to a wall and take marks off.
I use them all the time.
They work really well, right?
Yeah.
She said, so you can picture this. I said, yeah. So she got this white sponge in your hand. She goes, now I spill red wine or red Kool-Aid or red juice or whatever, And I said, okay. And she goes, and now you wipe it up. I said, yep, got it. And she goes, now you go over to the sink and you squeeze it out like you just told me you're squeezing it out, right? You're getting rid of that liquid that you took into your sponge. I said, yeah. And so she said, so now you squeeze it out. What's the sponge look like? And, of course, it took me a second, but then I'm like,
it's colored.
It's got pink, red, some hue, some color.
Yes.
And she gets a smile again, and she's like, right. She's like, you know what that's called? I'm like, she's like, residue. And I mean, then the lesson hit me, was like, oh, yeah, you don't take somebody else's stuff in and leave unscathed. That's vicarious trauma. That's all these things they talk about where, I suffer because you suffer kind of thing. So I was like, well, fucking great. How do you fix that? Like, how do you be an empath? I mean, do I just not let my buddy Eric talk to me about his problems because I'm going to internalize them and it's going to affect me? And so now what do I have to do? Isolate and become the Unabomber? I mean, what the fuck, And she goes, no. She goes, you got to stop being a sponge. I said, you got to be a sifter. And I was like, okay, I'll bite. What is that? I know what a sifter is. I think we all do, right? But she said, all right, picture me and you are going to hold this sifter together. She said, you're going to help me through my shit. You're going to help me figure out my problems. I said, okay. So she said, so let's put this sifter between us. We'll both put our hands on it, all four of us, right? And I'm going to put all my stuff in this sifter, all of it, good and bad. And she goes, what I need from you is to help me kind of shake that sifter and let all the bad stuff fall out. And she goes, but when we're done, you give me that sifter back. You don't take it. You don't bring it with you. You don't internalize that stuff. And she goes, cause that's what I do. She goes, she said something about all you crazy firemen are here. I'm helping all you guys. And she goes, I ain't taking your shit with me home. And she goes, I'll sift it with you, but after that, it's yours. It ain't my problem. It ain't my cross to bear. She said all this funny shit.
Yeah.
And, all joking aside, I mean, that lesson stuck with me. Now I just got my 12-month coin the other day, and all that stuff from being home from the program. I got home in the middle of April last year. And so, that's something that stood out in my mind a lot. And that's something I told my buddy today on the phone. I said, hey, you want to help guys, and I know there's a balance. And I said, so if that helps you, think of it that way, like help people sift it, but don't internalize those things, because you have your own stuff to deal with. And that's allowed me to be resilient every day, where I can talk on the phone for an hour to somebody that needs it. And then I give them their sifter back, and then I go about my day. I don't let it affect my marriage anymore. I don't sit there and just obsess over like trying to figure out ways to solve their problem because I really want to help them. I mean, it comes from a good place, but it becomes,
it can be very damaging to yourself, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked that, because, I don't know if I'm an empath or not, dude. I feel like I am. I haven't been told I was or anything. That they never told me in my program, but, I do the same stuff, like sleepless nights trying to figure out so many people's problems for them. If they would do this would be better. If they would do this, that would be better. If they would eat this way, if they would drink more water, if they maybe prayed, or if they would talk to this person, go to that doctor, or maybe get this job, or whatever it might be, right? Go to this station with a different crew, and I'm like, it's not my life, man. And I would constantly absorb people's challenges, and problems, thinking I can solve their problem. It's like, dude, no. First of all, I'm not God, for one. Second of all, it's like, I don't know it all, right? We have some good perspectives to help people, right? But I would definitely take a lot of the problems in, just like you said with the sponge, and it would weigh me down so much to where I would get like gnarly anxiety attacks and just bad stuff, right? And I'm like, I got to stop taking on everybody else's issues because I was worrying how they would view me, because I wanted them to view me as a support, as a pillar of like, hey, I can go to Eric. He's not gonna judge me, but he's gonna truly help me, and he's gonna listen, and he's gonna help me get to a better place in life. But dude, if you take all that on, man, like it's just gonna wear you down. So like with that sifter, right? I've had to learn that a lot. I'm still sifting through life per se, but we all are. But sifting through who truly matters, where you have to take on more of people's challenges, because maybe like someone like me and you, right? Or you and I might listen to you a little bit deeper than someone I just met, because I know you more. I know what you can handle. I know you can take things. You won't take it personal. So I'm like, you know what? I can just talk to Shane. This isn't going to hurt him. I'll just say my 2 cents. If he wants to listen to it, awesome. If he doesn't, I ain't going to lose any sleep over Shane, because he's got some pretty tough skin. And if it goes in one ear out the other, I really don't care. That's hard for me. But with the people I struggle with are the people I know that are really, they have a hard time listening to the truth. And I feel like a lot of us don't like to hear the truth. So that's where I start taking people's issues, right? I start absorbing things, right? The resiliency, I become less resilient because I'm like, oh my gosh, man, like, did I say the wrong thing? Did I portray in the wrong tone? Did I not uplift them like I was supposed to uplift them? Did it maybe tear them down a little bit more, but I was just being truthful with them? And so those things will stick with me, because I'm like, man, I don't want them. Then I will start saying sorry a lot, because I was trying to, I want to be truthful, but I don't want to be too truthful to where it was going to hurt them and take them down a bad road. But someone like you or your closer friends, like you said, I feel like my friends are pretty solid. I can be super open, and I don't really have to worry about their feelings, because it's like, yeah, no, tell me how it is. And a lot of us can't do that. A lot of people don't want to hear the truth. So I have the issue with absorbing when I start realizing people don't have the mental state to take the truth. Pretty much. That's where I notice it more. When people can take the truth, I don't take anything home. But because the reason I say that is because that's how I was for a long time. People would try to be like truthful with me. Dude, I was so weak, man. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. The person I have become today is the person that I wish I had mentoring me. I really freaking mean that, man, because I think what we're losing in life with social media and with just, I think men in particular, I feel like we're losing true mentorship, right? We're losing the truth. We're losing the reality of life's a challenge, right? We're all going to go through different challenges, right? It's not our job to absorb or take in everybody's challenges or pain or failures, but it is our job as men and just as a human being to help, to listen, to give a solution, and then let them go with whatever they're going to do. And people would tell me what to do. People would try to help me. I didn't even know how to take that, dude, at all. It's weird. I would from you. You would tell me things, and for whatever reason, whenever you would tell me stuff, I would listen because I respect you. But what I've noticed, I don't respect that many people. I'll communicate with them and listen, but I really don't like. I'm like, okay, well, show me in your life, right? Where you've put these into action, right? And even like when I was a rookie down at Long Beach, guys are trying to help me, but when your body is in so much survival and you don't even know what's up or down, I didn't realize I was in survival since I was a kid. But I mean, I do now. But when people are trying to help you, I didn't even know how to take the help. I'll just put a wall up and be like, okay. And people are like, dude, it's like I'm talking to a wall. I'm like, no, I'm listening. I'm really listening. But there would be guys telling me like, dude, like, do you even care? Like, yeah, I really do care. Like I wanted to become better, but I didn't know how to take the help, dude, which is so wild. So now I'm on the opposite side. You know, I'm able to see my family. I'm able to see, you know, different guys I worked with in the past. And I'm like, wow, like there was a lot of help there, but I didn't even know how to accept the help. So going back to, you know, absorbing other people's issues, like I would see that from somebody else and they would try to help me and they would just walk away. I'd be like, did they not care about me? I was wanting people to absorb my problems because I was so broken and weak, dude. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now that I see it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, like, bro, that's unrealistic, Eric. What? Wow. I can laugh at myself now, but I look back, it was someone striving for just some kind of, do you hear me? Because when you grow up in a traumatic household, or you feel like your voice is never heard, maybe because of the house, maybe because of a religion, you feel like your voice doesn't matter. So you're hoping somebody else is going to be that sponge and they can take all your crap. But dude, that's not what I thought I was doing, but it's what I wanted someone to do for me because I felt like it would feel like someone actually cared about your emotion, your feelings, and actually wanted you to succeed. I didn't know what it was like for someone to actually care about you and be like, hey, no, don't do that, do this. I thought somebody being a sponge was healthy, but it's not at all. And so, you know, it's kind of, the conversation's kind of gone down a different way, but I asked for the, you know, how do you not absorb it? Because I know there's other people out there that feel just like me and want someone to just vent to or just talk about their problems. I don't know that's what I was doing, but absorbing is not good. So if there's anybody out there, man, that's listening to this that can resonate with that, like if somebody is trying to help you understand, like it's not their responsibility to take on your problems. It's our responsibility to help you find a solution to the challenge, and it's your responsibility to put it into action.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's times I still absorb things and I try not to. You know, I think it's a balance. But one of the things that I think that you and I were talking about, you mentioned this in like a book you read recently. But, you know, there are a lot of people who try to help you and they try to, in their best way, mentor you or try to absorb your stuff or to give you, and I say you in general, all of us. I mean, there's people that cross our paths that want to, they think they're doing the best for us. And there's all these various ways. Some of it is, I'm tough love. I'm going to tell you the hard truth that you don't want to hear. And there's a balance. I mean, there's too much tough love at times, right? Like I'm a big truth teller. I
love it, dude.
I hammer, you know, you're not going to get the touchy feel good from me most of the time. But I've learned how to temper that a bit. And then I learned how to see that an approach coming from somebody like that. It's from a place of love. It's just, they don't know, you know, how to do it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the, you know, the pussyfooting around to the point where it's just like, you know, they're so worried what everybody else thinks or about maybe hurting feelings that it's like ineffective. You know, it's almost like the analysis paralysis. Nobody's willing to make a decision. Right.
Yeah.
But, I think, like if I look back at my stuff, like I think what you said is a powerful insight as to like, you were looking for somebody to absorb your stuff. And I think that the first thing that popped in my head was what Doc Springer says, which is when we connect, we survive. And so, you know, you're in survival mode and you were looking for connection.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's one of the key tenets in all this stuff is connecting with other people who can understand you and who you can relate with. And these things are, they transcend party lines and religious lines and all these other things that typically define our society and divide us. The human condition of, you know, emotions and empathy and all the stuff that we're talking about all the time. I mean, it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, that's something that's universal. And so, but go back to like, we were talking about the book you read, you know, one of the points you brought up earlier, and I think it ties right into this, is that the people that want to help, right? But the reason they want to help is because they don't want to look in their own backyard. They don't want to clean up their own house. They want to point out all the shit that's wrong in your house. So I'm going to tell you, Eric, you're all fucked up because you're not engaged with the crew and you're sleeping too much and you're this and you're that. And they're just hammering away on you. And because your mind is open to like trying to be better, you're just kind of taking it from other people. But, you know, it's sometimes you look and you go, who the fuck are you to tell me anything? Like, have you looked in the mirror there, you know?
Yeah.
Chubby or fucking, you know, you're not competent at the job. Or,
yes, dude.
You know, you're 20 years on doesn't make you a good fireman.
Exactly.
Because you've had the same year 20 times. You don't impress me.
Yes.
You know, and you're not going to get my respect just because you're the senior man. And even outside the firehouse, there's plenty of people in our own families, right?
Yep,
that
exactly.
They're going to just lay into you because, again, they don't want to look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of mentioned that earlier, and I think that ties into this, is like finding that when you kind of take stock in your life as to like, who are you going to give real estate to in your life? You know, are you gonna let people like that actually interact with you? Are you going to make it a point to only take that kind of feedback from people that, you know, have your best interest in mind? And then, you know, people that maybe really care about you and they're trying to come at you with that stuff, you got to give them some grace. You got to give them, you know, you got to understand that they may not be equipped with presenting it in the right way, but you also have to, you're a human being, you have to establish your boundaries and go to that person and be like, look, man, like that doesn't work for me, and I love you and I know you love me, but like don't do that again, or let's figure out a better way, but this way doesn't work for me, you know, because you're not perfect and you're not on high here. And I think that's where like our stuff works together, because we're both kind of just, I mean, we're both working through this stuff daily all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, and we bounce stuff off each other in that healthy way where, you know, both of us have very different daily routines. We have very different lives, you know? So you were talking about that tonight at dinner, you know, just about having the difference in the daily routines of our lives. So,
yeah. I think it's what you just said, like with one of your buddies was saying, you know, how do you be resilient with, you know, people emailing us or text messages, different people I'm talking to, different people you're talking to. There's different partnerships we have, you know, with Stella, and that's brought on just a lot of talk with different people and different, you know, aspects, not just the fire service, right? There's other guys I'm working with that are from the gym, and, you know, I don't want to name drop people, but there's some awesome guys that I've been very fortunate to meet the past few weeks. And, you know, how do you be resilient? It's just like you said, as we sift through the stuff, our sponge, as we sift through what people talk to us about, we have to sift through our friends, right? Not everyone needs our full attention. That's very difficult to do, dude. Right. And I know when I started doing that, and like, so a couple weeks ago, I was sitting down with some people that that have helped me through some very dark times through social media. And fortunately, I've been able to network with some of these guys now, meet them personally, have some really in-depth conversations, and get to know them on a personal level. And I'm like, man, I pretty much ask the same questions. You know, how do you deal with your, you know, what are your daily challenges, right? How do you deal with family and the kids and, you know, social media and the comments? And he's like, you know, you just have to you have your tribe. You have the ones that you can rely on, right? Like if I come to you, Shane, I can talk to you and know like you're not going to sugarcoat anything with me. You need those people. Like I need you, right? Like if I come to Shane, hey dude, I'm struggling with this, or, you know, financially this, or emotionally this, or what do you think? Like earlier I asked you, right? Hey man, if you had for your ideal life, what would it be right now? And you went down and you gave some answers, because it was a question, because I'm trying to figure things out. Hey, what would Shane do, right? I respect you. Hey man, and we shoot the shit, right? Try to figure life's challenges out, right? Wherever we're out on the journey. You can't do that with everybody, because a lot of people don't know what the hell they want, right? They don't like what they do. They're not making enough money. They don't know what they want. They're not in the, you know, like I said, they don't like what they do. But yeah, we're talking a lot of firemen. A lot of firemen love their job, but some don't, right? Some want to be out of the job, right? Whether it's leadership in the fire department, whether it's their position in the fire department, whether it's where they work in the fire department, whether it's the pay, whether it's the retirement, whether it's whatever, right? So if we're only getting our information, or our buddies are only in that, which is good, only in that tribe, that works very well. But we also have to open our mind to other opportunities or other opinions. But we have to sift through who we give our time to. We have to sift through who we tell our junk to help us with the next person, right? So I feel like being resilient is that. It's knowing yourself, saying, you know what? My sponge is getting full, or my cup is getting full, my bag is getting full, whatever that might be for you, whatever term you want to use. It's realizing your gauge of like, you know what? This person's taking a lot out of me. I'm going to pull back a little bit. I'm going to keep that conversation a little bit shorter, but I'm going to be more matter of fact. This person over here, okay, I can give them more of me. I can be more vulnerable because we need to be vulnerable, but not everybody needs that vulnerability. We have to be able to differentiate between who deserves our time, because our time is valuable. That was a very hard concept for me to comprehend too, personally, because I felt like I can't be selfish with my time. I'm a biblical person. There's more happiness in giving than receiving. So I was always like, if I'm always giving, that's where happiness is. It's like, well, yeah, but giving is giving to yourself as well. So part of that is sifting through who do you actually open up to, who are you vulnerable with, right? On a deeper level, not just a general level. That will help you be resilient. Making sure you're tight group of maybe it's one person, maybe it's a few buddies, whatever, but the people that you can truly confide in. And I feel like there's a study shown, dude. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was some high number, man. Gosh, I wish I had the number, but it was like men don't have one person they can go and talk to. Most men don't have a buddy they can talk to, like we do, right? I feel like the fire service, we have some, we're pretty fortunate, but they're just talking about the general, just the population. Yeah. Most men are afraid to go have a real conversation with another man and say, hey, dude, I need some help. Yep. I'm struggling. It was like, if anyone's listening to this, go Google it. Like Google it, whatever it is. I don't know what the number is, but it's a pretty high number and it's pretty astonishing. So like, going back to your buddy's question, it's like, that's how you be resilient. You really have to take stock into yourself, right? And understand like, okay, I'm going to give this person my time, that person my time, and the conversations are going to be, you can't put too many lines around it. But what I'm trying to say is you have to understand who deserves your time. Without, I've kind of gone down that hole.
But so then along the resilient thing, another thing we were talking about is, doing hard things. I think that was the name of the book that you read.
Yeah, it's actually called, it's Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. Anyone. It's on Audible. It's on Kindle. It's actually a book. So I follow this guy named Nick Barr, like ultra marathon runner. He owns BPN Fitness. Great podcast, just a, awesome athlete and CEO of a company. And I've really been trying to listen, read, watch more autobiographies of these CEOs of these big companies, and looking what are the books they're reading. How are they a good leader of multi-million-dollar companies, right? Getting into their psyche and what's their mindset. What are their daily routines? How are they successful in their level of life, right? So it's not a book I just found. I was like, I'm searching through Audible. This looks pretty cool. It's a book that was recommended by him on one of his podcasts, and he's actually read it 3 times. And I'm like, okay, you know what? If he read it, I'm gonna check into this. So I just finished it today. I think it took me like a few days, but I'm on it. I want to listen to it. So if you guys want to check it out, I don't think you'll regret it. It's a great leadership book. It's just a great life book. And it just goes into a lot of things that Shane and I have talked about with the SGB. It does go into the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. It actually focuses on that a lot. And then what you just said earlier of toughness, right? You need a tough love, but you also need the reality of life that we are emotional human beings, right? And you got to be able to deal with those things at the right moments. And it goes into all that stuff. It talks about Pete Carroll and the NFL and college football and just athletes, and then actually like kind of cultism of fear-based stuff. That's old toughness. it's a pretty cool book. You guys, anyone that's listening to this, definitely go check it out and let us know what you think, because there's some really good points in there. And I think we're going to get into some of those points later, but yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I was thinking about was when we talk about resilient, you and I have talked for, I don't know how many episodes we have now, but a lot about all these little things that we do, right? Sauna and cold plunge, and it's all great stuff. But so part of resilience too is the fact that you're going to fuck up. Like, you're going to have shit days. You're going to make bad choices. You're going to do things that aren't beneficial to your overall wellness, right? And we all are. We do it all the time. And so that's where, like, I think kind of to the point in your book that you kind of brought up some of these points. You and I were talking about this, and I'm very data driven. I'm not overly spiritual about things. So I feel like, show me the data, show me the proof, like, yeah, it sounds good. But so us doing the deep dive this past year on the brain and the body's physiological processes and how all that stuff, like, what drives that? So everything you were saying earlier about being in that fight or flight at the department, but seeking that connection with others is that survival mechanism. It all goes back to literally trying to survive. And so same as you, I do the rabbit hole with all these different things. And lately I've been into Dr. Daniel Amin, who's the guy that's done the SPECT brain scanning on 250,000 people at the Amin clinics, and fascinating stuff on the brain, 100% proof of the fact that the brain is just an organ. And that, I mean, his numbers, his stats are like pretty sobering, pun intended, about things like alcohol and what it does to the brain, and just a single drink of alcohol, what it ends up doing. I mean, he's looking at the brain scans, so you can dismiss it all you want. But to me, it's like when you look at a side-by-side brain of a healthy brain versus a brain that's impacted by all these problems, whether it's alcohol, drugs, depression, anxiety. I mean, they can literally look at your brain scan and pretty much predict what you're dealing with. And so for me, that's a pretty powerful indicator. And so, yeah, recently I bought a Whoop strap, and that, for anybody that doesn't know, that's a little thing I wear on my wrist now. It's connected to an app on my phone, and it's a biometric device that is constantly sending feedback to my phone. It's constantly monitoring multiple data points of my physiological processes. So it's got my heart rate. It's got my SpO2, so my oxygen saturation. It's got my sleep performance. It's got a stress monitor. It actually does my skin temperature. It has the probably the most important one that I like is the heart rate variability. And so you can YouTube that, rabbit hole that, but heart rate variability is a metric that is very much an indicator of your fitness, but it's also an indicator of your body's balance between the two systems, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic. And my HRV is very low. It's weird because all my other markers are great. I mean, tier 1 on all my fitness levels and all this stuff, but my HRV is really low for my age. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around a lot of what that really means. I think I understand kind of some basics about it, that my sympathetic nervous system basically it drives. There's no, like, the parasympathetic is kind of like sitting in the wagon. It ain't doing anything. So I don't have a great balance in between those two systems, even after the shots and after the work that we do and all these things. And so, but so last week I had a buddy of mine, I hadn't seen him in a while. And this is the point of all this, is that I look at this data. So 45 days I've been wearing this thing. Most days my recovery after I sleep, my heart rate variability has been staying in like the mid to low 30s, which is pretty low from what I understand. But it's also a difficult metric because there's no number. There's nothing to say like 130 to 150 is the right range. Like, there's too many other variables, but it's more about a steady HRV is what you're looking for. So whatever your baseline is like, if you stay in that baseline, that's more indicative of a more balanced system, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I've seen people, I think the highest one I read about was like a 204, to put it in perspective, like a 204 HRV, mine's 30. So
wow.
My baseline's 34.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's a significant like number. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like all messed up. It's something I'm trying to learn. And there are all these techniques they offer about, like, here's how you improve brain health. Here's how you improve heart rate variability. There's some other variables to go with it. So anyways, I, last Thursday, I think it was. Buddy of mine, I haven't seen him in forever. Drove up to my boat. I was down in Long Beach for a class, and he came up from San Clemente. And, one of my oldest friends in the world, catch up like we never missed a beat. I mean, we haven't seen each other in a few years, and I love this guy like a brother. And in the past, I mean, I've been like, hey, let's grab a glass of whiskey. Let's break the beers out. I mean, and he's not a huge drinker, but when we got together, we would usually throw a few back. And it's like, hey, you want a water? You want a cup of coffee? And so we're sitting on the back of the boat, hanging out in the marina, and then he pulls out a bag of cigars and he says, hey, you want a cigar? And I was like, yeah, why not? It's been a while, probably about 3 months since I smoked a cigar with any of my friends. I think the last time I might have smoked was when you and me did a podcast last year.
Oh yeah.
So, and I used to smoke cigars like not daily, but a lot more, like maybe a couple times a week, like with buddies or over beers, things like that. And that would fluctuate, but I never even considered it because I just thought, oh, dude, I only smoke once in a while. It's not, and I've never smoked a cigarette ever in my life.
Really?
I've never smoked marijuana. So, and I know that's wild considering the life I've lived, but it's the truth. I've never smoked a cigarette. So like, I've always looked at it like, oh yeah, no, I'm not a quote unquote smoker. So tobacco has never probably really impacted me. Right. That was my belief.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, as I said, I've been wearing this thing about 45 days. And so we're sitting on the back of the boat and I light up a cigar with them and they're these little nubs. They're about 3 inch, 4 inch long, something like that. And, just having a smoke with one of my old friends, right? Felt fine. It didn't make me feel anything. I didn't feel buzz. I didn't feel bad. I didn't get a headache, nothing like that. And so he ends up splitting, I go take a shower, come back to the boat, have a little bite to eat and crash out. Dude, when I woke up in the morning, the Whoop strap calculates all your sleep performance, and that's how it kind of comes up with your HRV, and it compares like your strain from the day before, and it recommends what you should be doing that next day, blah, blah, blah. Dude, my HRV plummeted. My heart rate variability dropped from 34 to like 24. And so, I mean, that doesn't sound like that, but that's got 1/3 drop almost, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at like the numbers and the percentages, and my recovery was like in the 30s or the 40 like percentile. Whereas statistically on this thing, I'm usually like in the 70s to 90s.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting really good sleep. I'm doing, I'm super hydrated all the time. I eat pretty well most of the time. I mean, I still splurge and have my days and whatnot. And then lately, the last couple of weeks, this is another biometric marker. I've been on the road for almost 3 weeks now, right? And so I've slept in my own bed 3 nights in the last 3 weeks. So that matters. It actually shows that I have about a 12% drop in recovery when I don't sleep with my wife next to me.
Yeah.
That metric is there. It shows it. That's unequivocally like, you can't debate that. It shows it in the numbers. So, anyways, yeah, that next day. So I thought, okay, cool. So what did I do that day? Freaking water, AG1, fiber, I go have a super healthy Mediterranean salad for lunch. That night I do poke. I don't drink anything other than water, electrolytes, all that good stuff, right? Even only did 2 cups of coffee in the morning, no coffee in the afternoon like I do a lot. Yep. Went to bed early that night. Next day, recovery still in the tank, HRV still in the tank. It took 4 days for that baseline to come back up. And that was like, and so I did a little more research and I read some stuff from Daniel Amin. I read some stuff from like Whoop stuff. Whoop has a huge library online to read through. And I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was just that tobacco in my system threw off everything, all that balance.
Yeah.
And it's like, does that mean that I'm saying I'm never going to smoke a cigar again? It's like, no, I'm not saying that. But I'm going to be aware that like, if I make that decision, there's going to be a biological consequence for those things,
Yeah.
And so back to our, how do you stay resilient every day? It's like, dude, you're going to mess up. Like, so did I mess up? I mean, in terms of like, if you're just looking at strict biological markers, yes. I mean, I put something in my body that's toxic and I'm not going to die. I'm not afraid I have cancer now. I'm not obsessing about it. I'm just aware of it. And I feel like that there's power in that, is that you understand that if you make a decision, so drinking, right? Like if you're going to drink, that's fine. Just know that there is consequences to go with that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so like we've got buddies that, are going through their own stuff right now who, you're going to mess up, man. If you mess up and you relapse, and it's like, what for yourself, what were some things that like, you would work really hard, but then you would have like a setback, let's call it,
Yeah.
and then what's that do to your mental? Do you beat yourself up? Do you work harder now? Do you give yourself grace? Like, how does that process work for you?
So I'm gonna answer that question, but before I want to go back to what you said. I don't think that's a mess up, dude. Right? Just having a cigar with your buddy, like I feel like that's the resilient mindset. That's what you did, is you had your normal night with your bud, right? Hey, you shoot the shit, you had fun, you talked, whatever, but you're data driven because you're on a goal or you're on a journey to better yourself. That's the resiliency. So you realize, hey, you know what? I don't typically do this. You looked at the data, right? Okay, man, things are off. Let's get back on that train and keep going. So I don't think that's a mess up per se for what it is. I don't want people to think like, oh, I made a big mess up. It's like, hey man, yeah, you're gonna fall back. You're gonna maybe fall off the wagon a little bit, but it's like, hey, take that and move forward, look at it. But going back to what your buddy said, it's like, or anyone listening, how do you be resilient? That's it right there. Like, that's the resilient mindset. That's the mindset you have to have of like, okay, cool. This happened. Let's change it.
But for me personally, that is the resiliency, is like the lesson in there is, well, if I choose that,
yes,
there's a consequence.
Yes, exactly.
And so when I make these choices, am I willing to accept the consequence? So if I know now that if I smoke a nub cigar with a buddy of mine, that for 4 days my HRV's in the toilet, does that mean I'm never gonna? No, it doesn't mean those things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the same thing with boozing or anything that you do. I mean, the same argument I can make for the fire station. I worked on Saturday over the weekend, and if you wake up at night, guess what happens on the whoop strap data? It goes in the tank, because now your sleep's super torn up and interrupted. Does that mean I'm never going to go to work again? Of course not. I'm going to have to go to work.
Exactly.
I'm going to run calls, but it's just I do believe that there's a huge amount of power in the understanding of the processes of the body, because then you don't feel as like hopeless or helpless or frustrated when, man, I should be feeling good. Why don't I feel good? And I know why, because me and Eric ate a freaking extra large pizza and drank a 2-liter of soda and stayed up till 3 a.m. and smoked a cigar. It's like, okay, yeah, there's going to be consequences on that for a few days, right?
Yep.
And it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't loop that into like, oh, I'm super depressed and I'm this and I'm that. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. I made a choice, did something that, wasn't exactly perfect by the strict definition of those things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what for me on the data side of things, because that's the stuff where I'm trying to figure out. It's like, because we're different. Everybody's different, like they're even in your diet, there's people who can eat things and other people like being a lactose intolerant type thing, or somebody that's like more sensitive to gluten. I know there's all these debates about that stuff, but I'm a big believer that like our physiology is different, because it's like with me, I've smoked cigars with guys who like are instantly, they feel a headache, they feel drunk, they feel high, they feel something, or then the next day they feel awful. And it's like, dude, I've almost never felt anything from a cigar, and it's just like, I'm not tougher than anybody, you know what I mean? It's just like physiologically, I guess we're different. And booze hits people different, everything. So it's just, that's why I think like relying on something that is a good data set and not just simple like, hey, my heart rate, because even resting heart rate, a lot of people don't understand what that means. Because during the day, your resting heart rate is kind of like all over the map because you're moving around and you're doing things. So as you get up and you move, you should be, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, because your blood's pumping, right? And that's another thing with brain. It's like blood flow is a huge part of that, because it uses something like 20 or 30% of the energy of the body. The brain.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, but it's this tiny percentage of the weight of it's like 2% of the weight of our body, but it uses 20 to 30% of the resources, Yeah. It's incredible.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so now you tie into like when you smoke, you don't get as much blood flow. When you drink, you don't get as much blood flow. When you don't sleep, you don't get as much blood flow. I mean, there's all these things that happen, and it's like, dude, there's your firefighter. Check, check, check.
Exactly.
Even being exposed to carcinogens and stuff on scene, they're, I'm interested to see that. That was another one kind of randomly too, is like, we had a structure fire 2 weeks ago, I was a captain on one of our downtown rigs, and we were second in, and it was a 2-story with a raised foundation, kind of looked like balloon frame with a basement type feel. So, and it was heavy smoke and fire pouring out of the Charlie Delta corner. And I got assigned fire attack with my rig and the first in rigs firefighters. And it was a hoarder house. So I went up to the front door,
And you on the truck?
I was on an engine.
Oh, you're on the engine.
Okay,
yeah. I said truck.
No, I was working an engine downtown, engine 3. And I went up to the front door, forced in, and because of the hoarder house, I wanted to be the lead because I had a kid that had like 3 shifts in the field on the nozzle. So I go pushing into this house, and it's hot and it's dark, and I can't see anything. I'm climbing over all kinds of garbage, just picturing in my mind all the nasty stuff that I'm climbing over, because I know you've been in those houses too. But all this to say, when this was all said and done and we wrap the fire up and we get out of there and we go back, I looked at the data set because I had the whoop strap on.
That's right. You showed me. Yeah.
And I showed you like the highest my heart rate got was into the 140s. And you would think like it's a structure fire. Like my wife just got back from a hike yesterday. She went on a little hike where they got about 700 feet of elevation gain throughout the hike. Her heart rate was 10% of the time it was above 167.
Dang.
And so it's like, am I Superman? No, I'm not an ultra marathoner. I'm not anything. It's just the training where like the stress of that, like the data doesn't lie, right? Like that you can literally go because it's all time stamped. So you can see the moment I was inside the structure fire when the peak of my heart rate was.
Yeah.
And
that's
it wasn't that high.
I got to get one of those, man.
So it's cool. I mean, you could definitely go down rabbit holes and stuff like that, but sure. It's again, I think for me, at least for me, and if it doesn't work for you, I don't give a fuck, right? Like it's for me personally, like these are like specific data points that you can measure and see that, it's like, it's on my wrist. So it's my actual numbers. This isn't just interpretive data that I think, and there's some stuff. What's really weird is like, I'll get a night where I don't sleep that well and my recovery is actually high and my HRV goes up. And so there's some of the stuff I still don't even understand. Like, I guess just I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And that's okay because it's part of this process. So like back to the question of how are you resilient every day? It's like, hey, because every day I'm trying to learn. Every day I'm trying to be better. I'm doing hard things. I'm not, taking the easy road that most people do, because I think most people, they don't want to get outside their comfort zone. They want their same routine. They want to make it easy. And then when they hear us talking and they read a book or they hear an audible book or a podcast and they hear things like get up at 5, take the cold shower, they just think in their head like, oh, that's easy for them. When you hear that. And so, we were just talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's how, you and I both, I think, take for granted that we just assume other people do the same thing.
Yeah, I know we do. Yeah. Just before this podcast, that's what I told you. I was like, man, I would just assume it's, you get up, you go take a cold shower, right? You get up, you just go for a walk, or you just go to the gym, whatever, 4, 5, 6 days a week. Oh, you just eat healthy. You just drink tons of water. That seems simple. To a lot, it's not. It's like, it's very difficult to maybe, they want to go for that cup of coffee first, right? Versus maybe a cup of water first to hydrate, because you wake up dehydrated, right? How many people actually drink? Well, it's hard because I think if you drink a big glass of water before you go to bed, who wants to get up and take a piss, right? So it's like, okay, maybe you hold off on drinking water, but we are dehydrated when we wake up. And the majority of people don't drink enough water. Initially, it's the sodas or it's the teas or it's the coffees or it's whatever it might be. So into that resiliency mindset, into do hard things, a lot will ask, what is my daily routine? And what's your daily routine? Or, what are these? Like you said, people just say it's so easy for them to do that. It's like, well, that's a hard thing. Stay hydrated. Take that alone. Just stay hydrated. Just that alone, dude.
Yeah.
Right? That's a hard thing for some people.
Oh,
right? Dude. That alone. So one of my I'll bring it up. I don't think she's going to listen to this podcast, but I want to bring it up because it's pretty funny. I'm going to talk about my sister. So I go, hey, Ann, she's like, are you drinking your water? So she wants to take, not the fish oil, but she wants to take, there's another type of fish oil pill. It's like it's a red one. Anyways, it's like a fish oil, but it's meant to, make your joints not so squeaky, right? And we went to Costco. We bought some of the stuff. I got my fish oil. She got her little thing she wanted to get. And I'm like, hey, make sure you get up. Every morning before I even start anything, I have at least a glass of water, but it's typically one of those hydro flasks. That's my very first thing every single morning because it hydrates me for the day.
Is that the whole thing? Like
the whole thing. Yeah, I drink the whole thing.
How much is that? 20, 32?
32, I think.
32
is what it is.
Yeah. That's a lot of water in one.
What's that?
That's a lot of water to have to drink that early in the morning.
Yeah, I do it first, and that is just my thing. That's just my thing now. Initially, it was hard, but now if I don't, I'm just kind of like, dude, I just cut myself short. It's my own mindset, my own thing of like, I didn't stay true to myself. I let myself down. Yep. That's just a me thing because I want to better myself, right? And there's numerous studies that showed just you don't have to drink a 32 or big hydro flask. That's not what I'm saying. That's the thing I do. But going back to the purpose of this was just the simple task of getting up. Maybe it's not water. Maybe it's lemon water. Maybe it's lime water. Maybe it's something to hydrate yourself. How do you stay resilient? Stick to what you're going to say. If you tell yourself you're going to do it, do it. Your thoughts matter. If you can't even hold yourself accountable, then your brain's going to know that, and it's going to give you the easy way out to be comfortable. And there's numerous, 7 days or 14 days or 21 days, whatever the number is, I highly recommend get those numbers out. If you do something for 21 days or 14 days or 7 days or a month, it's now a habit. Just tell yourself this is what I'm going to do, and do it. It's going to be a habit. And if you don't want to do it anyways. That's how simple it truly is. And you'll hear people say, well, it's just so hard. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. Okay, so it's hard to take care of your body. It's hard to stay hydrated. And the older we get, dude, things don't become easier. They become harder, right? So going back to my sister, she'll get her cup of coffee, right? And I'm like, Ange, have you been drinking your water? No. Then I'm like, okay, well, I'm giving you, I can't do it for you. I'm not going to go shove this glass of water. I'm not going to, here you go, sis. Here's your fish oil pills, whatever the heck you want to call them. And here's your glass of water. I'm not going to force people to do that. That's their life, right? But it's like, as far as us on this resiliency thing, the mindset to do hard things, the things that people think set you apart are very small, minute things to keep you resilient. It's the proper sleep. It's the thoughts that go into your head. It's what you're listening to. Hopefully this podcast helps you, right? Because this is going to help you be resilient. Us doing this podcast helps me be resilient because it's like we're hopefully teaching or helping or mentoring, whatever word you want to say, of things that I can hopefully help speed up your process that I've gone through the last almost 5 years where it's like, hey, if you listen to this podcast, you don't have to go down the dark path I went. I'm going to give you 5 years of information of like, hey, do this, try that, think this way, listen to this, read that, watch this, right? That's how you stay resilient. That's how you stay tough per se, or a toughness, right? So anyways, my sister won't do it. She still hasn't done it. The simple thing of just that doesn't take extra money, doesn't take extra time. It doesn't take, you have all the stuff in your kitchen. It's just a mindset thing of like, I'm going to do this when I get up in the morning, whatever that is for you. Right. So what I've come to realize is we talk about discipline. We talk about inspiration. We talk about motivation, all these things. Discipline is easy to do when you're happy. Motivation easy to do when all circumstances are perfect, right? Feeling inspired when you're in a good mood, that's easy to do. You get good sleep, the weather's nice outside, it's a nice, beautiful 76 degrees outside, whatever it might be, that's easy to do. The hard things is when you don't want to get up. You got 2-3 hours of sleep the night before, but you told yourself the night before, I'm going to drink that cup of water, and you know what, first thing, I'm going to go for a little 15-minute walk outside, come back, then start my day. Those little things will set you apart because the majority of people aren't doing that. Those are the things where you're going to start building up that muscle in your brain, start building that resilient mindset, start building up that self-confidence for yourself. Nobody freaking else. This is strictly for you to look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I'm holding myself accountable. And a lot of people cannot hold themselves accountable. They let that accountability go. If you tell yourself you can do something the night before, you get up the next morning and you don't do it, your brain's going to be like, you just lied to me. Your brain's not even going to believe what you're telling yourself. And you're going to go back on that same cycle. Whatever that is. Pornography, sex addiction, alcoholism, whatever, like what you were talking about earlier of, oh, I feel like I messed up. Or we're talking about the mess up. You need to mess up. We talked about that. But people can get into that loop. And then you asked me, okay, so if you feel like you mess up, what do you do? That's what I do. I tell myself, if sometimes just telling myself isn't good enough, I can do it now, but if I find myself going down that path, I either have to put notes on my iPhone, a specific time, what I'm going to do that next morning, even that night, I'll plan my whole day. If just thinking the thoughts doesn't work, I'll put notes with my, my little thumbs or whatever. If that doesn't work, then I actually have to write it on my iPad, right? Then I'll go ahead, I'll pull up my iPad, I'll date it, I put the time, I write it out. Eric, you will do this tomorrow morning at this time. Hold yourself accountable. Eric, you will do this. I will sign at the very end, like a signature. I wish this was on. I wish this was like we were recording it like on our phones, because I would show you guys, but I can't show you guys.
Yeah.
I actually sign my journaling.
Yeah.
So time, date it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll write out whatever I need to do at the bottom. I'll do like a regular X with the line. Then I'll date it again and I'll sign it. So I do a signature to myself, holding myself accountable, because if I don't, then who's going to believe me? This podcast would make no sense. No. So I'm holding myself accountable so you guys know I'm doing what I'm actually talking about, right? Yeah. That's the mindset you have to have for yourself. No one's going to see you're doing this. I could be lying and be like, oh yeah, I do all this. Okay, well, show me proof. Okay, well, if it was on video right now, here's my iPad. For the last 3 years, signature, 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 yeah. Signature, do this, do that, do this, right? That's the things you need to do for yourself to make sure you're staying on track. Whatever you need to do, whatever that is for you, it may not be signing a journal, right? It might be something else. Whatever that is for you, you have to figure that out, but that's the process of elimination, what works and doesn't work for you to be successful on your journey. Those are the things I've done. So it's like that question you asked earlier, what do you do when things pop up? That's what I do. Yeah. I have to literally write things out because my brain will take me down a rabbit hole. It'll be like, dude, you ain't going to do this. Those last 3 years of work, dude, it's not a big deal. You put so much work in the past few years, you can take a day off. Mm-hmm. If you do that once, it'll happen again, then again, and again. And I promise you, it's just I use this thing, the analogy of the gym, but it can be drumming as well. I love playing drums, and if I don't it's kind of hard, man, because having a creative mindset versus just a to-do mindset are two different things, right? To be a musician, to be a creator, you have to be flowing, you have to be in a different mindset than just so task-oriented. So if I take time off of drums, I've noticed my creativity is better than forcing myself to practice every single day. Oh, I gotta tough out 4 hours of practice here. I gotta tough out 6 hours. My creativity goes out the window because now I'm forcing myself task-oriented like we are in the fire service, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, get up, run the call, do the thing, and we train so much, we're just acting. We can do a lot of the stuff really without thinking because we train so much, right? Unless you get a really big fire, we're actually pretty stoked, or trauma or something, a big call, we actually get to use our skills a little bit more, but then we're pulling from the training we're already doing and staying calm, right? I can't do that with your creative mindset. The mindsets are completely different. So, I totally lost my train of thought again. I was down a really good path, you guys. Sorry. Getting back on that train is basically what I'm saying is I just have to.
You're talking about drums and I think on the creative thing, that's actually interesting because I think that that goes back to when somebody hears you saying, you get up at 5 and go for your walk or your run, go get in the cold plunge, do this, do that, do this, right? It sounds like you have this super strict routine that is inflexible, right? But I don't think that's what you're saying. And for people that and this includes myself, because as you said, the creative, I'd never really thought of it that way, but I do think that like one of the things that's super important to me is the flexibility of my daily routines. I don't like routine. It's kind of difficult because I don't like things being the same. I get bored super fast. That's really
So do I.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, I think most firefighters do.
Yeah.
And that actually, I think you can tie into brain health and the sympathetic nervous system looking for threats, because when you assess that things aren't a threat, you're not interested, so you seek chaos and all that other stuff. But I think that like I think you take the stuff we're talking about with data and metrics and discipline and holding yourself accountable, and I think what it all comes down to for me is just like trying to get in tune with like my own body, my own health, my own brain. Like we're all different, and I am not preaching to not drink. I'm not preaching to not smoke. I'm not preaching anything. I don't, like I said, you do you, man. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But I look at the, you know, the cold hard facts that don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
And when that number drops or goes up and it corresponds to something like that, it's hard to argue with those things. So that's like when I say the mess up, it's like, well, okay, it's like when I do this, I know my body will do this. That's what I want to understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Is I really want to understand that, like when I do the sauna, because I wear the whoop strap in the sauna, and my heart rate, the highest I've got my heart rate in there is 159, and so that's more. That's like almost 20 beats more than I had in a structure fire in the sauna, you know. But I do the sauna, and it's hard. It's 176 degrees, and I do it for anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes sometimes, and for me, the key is when I want to get out, and then I have to go another 5 minutes.
Yes.
And that's for me the balance of like pushing through the suffering of that. It's, and you know, yes, I know the heat shock proteins and da 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 da. It's great for me in cardiovascular. Yeah, I got all that. The sweat feels good.
Yeah,
it's cool
for sure.
But the win is overcoming the suffering, because I know you'll get out. I won't. You'll get out. That's the mentality. It's like everybody else is going to quit. I won't quit, kind of thing.
That's a key point. Hit that suffering, dude. A lot don't want to suffer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the do hard things. And that's the suffering is like, you know, after that, the rest of the day is easy, because you just survived 176 degrees for 45 minutes. You just got in a 33 degree water for 4 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you wanted to do. You know, I mean, there's all these different ways you can suffer and overcome it. I mean, even a workout at the gym can suck, and, you know, you can suffer through it. So I think that it's having that creativity to kind of figure out, how do you feel that day? Like what feels right? And are you going to listen to your body? And are you going to give yourself a rest day? That's something else I'm learning a lot about is sleep, man. Because for years, my entire adult life, my sleep patterns were so fucked off. I remember going days with hardly any sleep, and then just, you know, a 12-hour day or something, you know, like finally hit a wall and just rack out and sleep till noon or 2 p.m. and get up, you know. And it was like, and I'm not talking about when I was a teenager, I'm talking about as an adult man, you know, where, yeah, I've always worked my ass off. I've always been responsible. I've always taken care of shit, but just, you hit that wall and it's like, dude, you go to bed at like 8 o'clock the night before, and you wake up noon or 1 p.m. the next day. And you're just like, oh yeah, cool. I just recharged my battery. I'm good. I'm all rested now. And it's like,
no, you're not.
No,
your system's not.
No, dude. I laugh now. I was thinking like what this stupid whoop strap would say if I had worn it 20 years ago. Like, yeah, hey dummy, you know, like you're on the red line all day long. Because like you were talking about comparing the body to like an engine.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and we've talked about this before, where everything in your diet matters, and your diet is not just what you put in your mouth as food. Your diet is, who do you hang out with?
Exactly.
What do you listen to on your podcast? What do you watch on TV? What do you read? You know, who do you spend your time around?
Dude, that stuff, that's hard, man. Right? Especially when it's a family member or it's a close friend. You know, when you really start, you know, you use this a lot, taking stock of, but when you start paying attention to your surroundings, you really only want people in your life that can add value to you. And that's not a selfish thing to say. I'm saying that in a way of you to continue to grow, you need to be around people that are better than you, right? And if no one's better than you and you're always the best person, right? So say if your family's negative, or if you have some negative friends, or if they're already out drinking and partying or whatever, not saying any of that stuff is per se bad, right? How many times do we get around the kitchen table and all the conversations are just negative, right? That's not good. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but your brain's going to start, without you even knowing it subconsciously, your brain's going to start picking up all these little nuances in it, and you're going to start becoming that person without you even truly knowing it. So it's like, so when you start taking stock of yourself and really paying attention to your surroundings, you start realizing what is good for you and what is bad for you. And that's going to start separating you. People might get upset. People might be like, what the heck? He's not hanging out with us as much anymore. Okay, yeah, that's my decision. Not that I don't like you, but it's like, I just want my life. I'm going on a different path now, right? We all grow. We want different things in life, with different, because different things happen to each and every one of us. So as we grow, our circle's going to change. Our mindset's going to change. What we want's going to change. Our needs are going to change. Some people never change. They just stay in their same lane their whole life, which is fine. That's what you want. Go do you, like you said, whatever. But when you're trying to grow, when you have that resilient mindset, when you want to do uncommon things, when you want to do hard things, when you want to become, I think it's another bumper sticker saying, but the best version of yourself, whatever that is for you. Those are the hard things, is to, maybe I'm not going to hang out with so-and-so like I usually do. Oh, we always go out for drinks this day, or maybe we do this or that. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to cut back on that. That's going to feel really freaking weird. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be like, what the heck, dude? You don't want to go party with us like you do that once a month? It's like, no, because it's not really like you said with that whoop strap, right? Now you have the data. It's like, that's not too good for me, for you. So when you start making those little changes, it's going to be very difficult. That's how I stay resilient, and that's hard because now you sometimes feel like, oh, they're going to judge me because I'm not hanging out with them. I'm not involved as much with this particular group, or, I get it even in my band sometimes, right? Those guys know I'm not getting drunk. So I'll get it in the band. We'll play a show. We're doing photo shoots. We're playing with big companies. Come on, Eric, just go have a drink with us and get drunk and do this. I'm like, I'm good, dude. And it's funny because me and my buddy Gino, he was like, not cussing me out, but he was like, dude, you just never want to have fun anymore. I get it from my own bandmates, right? Because I'm like, dude, I want to get up and work out the next day. I want to get up, and if I'm doing this podcast, my character, I can't be talking about this stuff and preaching this stuff if I'm not living in my own life, right? Here I am trying to help people, but then I'm the one getting drunk after a show, right? That's, for me, that's myself. That's the standard I'm holding myself to. I'm holding myself accountable for that. I'm not saying you guys have to do that, but as people are asking us questions, how do you do it? What do you do? What's your routine? These are the ways I take care of myself, right? And that's what sets you apart. When I notice myself starting to get like comfortable and like things are going too good, I'm like, that's a gauge for myself of like, okay, I'm going to enjoy that moment, but I need to do something hard. I need to get uncomfortable. I need to suffer some way, somehow. I'm not saying go and do something dangerous or like that's going to kill you or put you in harm's way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe if you're working out, and your routine's the same, then maybe do one extra, like I'm always a big person on one extra rep, right? But maybe work out in a different location or go outside and do a workout. That might be a hard thing because you like going to the gym, the people, it's the same environment, whatever, same machines, it's common to you. So you just switch it up and you can do something else, right? For some people, that's very uncomfortable. Walking into a gym is very uncomfortable for some people, right? They get anxiety. They're like, well, I'm going to get judged. People are going to look at me. Am I using the machine the right way? If that's hard for you, go do that. That could be suffering for you because your body and your brain's going to be like, nah, dude, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Those people know more than you. They're going to be looking at you. I'll tell you right now, the people who actually know what they're doing, they're probably going to want to help you. If you're doing something wrong, hey, you know what? Try it this way or whatever, right? But most people don't care because they're doing their thing. People really don't give a crap about you. You just go do your thing and it'll be so much better, right? They really don't. And when you get that out of your head, going to the gym, going for a walk or whatever it might be, being a musician, it's like being creative is a big thing for me. So I used to get nervous going on stage. I mean, nerves are good, right? Like, cause you want to do well, right? Like you're taking a test or whatever. I get more nervous performing in front of my friends and family than people I don't know because I want to impress them. Oh, Eric's working so hard. He's practicing this many hours a day. It's like when my friends and family come to my show, it's like I want them to be happy. I don't know anyone else. I may never see those people again. Okay, they might put some stuff on social media or whatever. Okay, I don't really care, right? I want my friends and family to be happy because that's who I care about, right? So, yeah, you just. But the way to overcome that nervousness is practice as much as you can, right? And in that practice, you push yourself to failure. You push yourself to where, I don't want to work on this rudiment because I'm not that good at it. I want to stick to what I'm comfortable with. I'm going to stick with punk rock beats. I'm going to stick with reggae beats because I'm good at that stuff. I'm going to go learn some jazz. I'm going to go learn, a different type of fusion or something like that. But it's going to take a whole different part of the brain. You're going to feel like you're starting all over again. And your brain's going to be like, dude, go back to what you know. You play in a punk rock band. You go do. You're good at that. You don't even need to go learn this style of music because you know what? There's people way better than you. That's a mental block, just like anything else, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it, right? You're not good enough. Other people are better than you. It's like, well, screw that. How do you get better? You dive in, you make yourself suffer, you do the practice you don't want to do, and you get better. And just like the gym, just like a muscle, just like a healthy habit, it takes time. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes a purpose, right? And the more you do that, you will get better. Same with resiliency. Same with the mindset. Same with toughness. You have to start picking little things that you're not that good at, or even something you are good at, right? And make that good better. Make it the best you can. Make it phenomenal. And then now you look back, you know what? I took the good thing because that's maybe where you're at. You weren't strong enough yet to go on the weak thing. So take something you're good at and make it better. Now, once you get that confidence up, I'm going to go take the thing I'm a little more weak at and build that. Now it's like, I was weak at that. I'm good now. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's teaching. Maybe it's working out. Maybe it's communication. Maybe it's less alcohol. Maybe it's less partying. Whatever it is for you, that's a weakness. Then you start getting better, and that internal dialogue, that self-talk becomes better. You can do this. You can do this. You are worthy of this. You are enough of this. You don't, that relapse you had a week ago, your brain's going to be like, dude, see, I told you were going to do that again. I told you were going to fall back in that hole again. That's what your brain's going to say because that's what it's used to. It's like, no, F that. You're going to slowly start picking away at that, and you're going to slowly get back on that train, right? And you're going to just keep chugging along. And hey, if you fall off, you get back on. And that's the biggest thing for anyone that is struggling with any of this. Or if you're not struggling, you're trying to help someone overcome this, support and encouragement is huge. But we can only support and encourage so much. They have to want to do it for themselves. And it goes back to that sponge. It's not your responsibility to take on their problems, but now there's information and things where, little tools and techniques we're giving that hopefully people will take from this, or use this, then they have to go and live their life. That's all you can really do, right? And even like my family, I love them to death. I love my sister to death, but it's like I used to take on her lack of discipline, right? Just in terms, I would tell her that. I'm like, Ange, come on. But what I find now, dude, is I look at people. I mean, I was always kind of like this, but more so now because of just the growth I've made. I see so much growth in other people that they don't even see in themselves. And it makes me sad. That's what makes me sad. Because I see so much disrespect or lack of good talk, not good self-talk, that people talk themselves down. Well, I don't deserve that. Oh, it's easier for them. Or I can never be like that person. screw that. Yeah, you can. Go do it. You deserve that for yourself, right? And so like that sponge, that's what I've noticed I've taken on, is seeing so much potential in other people where it's like, if you just did this, it's going to build. You know, it's like a house does not, we know, right? A house does not just magically happen. You got the foundation, right? Well, you got the earth, the gravel, right? Then you have to level it out. Then you have the foundation. Then you have, you know, the frame, and then you got to put everything together. Then it builds this gorgeous house. People want to have the end result. They want to be magically healed with their journeys in life without the process of building their house or the process of building their temple, their body, their brain, right? And it takes a process. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to feel like a piece of crap. You're going to feel like a failure more than you're going to feel good when you're actually pushing to stay resilient and stay tough, per se. Your brain's going to want to say, nah. This go back to what you're comfortable with. And that's where people give up, because you have to push past that barrier. Once you're into a level of, like, you know, you could take, once you're into a level of, okay, so say we're going to a 3-story home, right? So it's like, you can reach your first level, right? But it's like, is that it? No, you want to go to the 3rd level and the 4th level. There's always a new level of life. And if we only go for one specific level, then where's the growth? Right? You reach a mountaintop, right? How many times do you see people going to, you know, Whitney or, you know, these big mountains? It's like, okay, cool. The majority of the time, what do they want next? What's the next thing? Right? They're training for the next thing. What's the next purpose? If you have no purpose, then what's the point? Right? And sometimes the purpose is just getting through that day, getting over if you relapsed, or if you need to learn better communication, learn something new that day, right? If you're dealing with, you know, post-traumatic stress injury, right? Use that to PTG, post-traumatic growth. So it's like, if you start taking these terms and then flipping them on itself and basically like reverse engineering these terms to hijack your brain, everything you're going through is meant to make you a better person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think like one of the most important parts of all that is, like, as simple as the fact that your sister won't drink water drives you nuts.
Yeah, I love her. I love you, man.
Of course. And it's not about judging someone. It's what you said, you know, I see the potential, but sometimes you see like something that you know will help someone, and you know they won't. So when our friends that won't stop drinking, and you know that's like, hey dude, if you just stop drinking, your life will get drastically better. You know, just that one change, or cut down on drinking, or whatever kind of thing. But I'll take it a step further, where I think there is a balance on, some people are content in a plateau, and that was a hard lesson for me.
True.
And I use my mother as an example. You know, my mom was a saint, dude. She was awesome. She was a kindergarten teacher, worked her ass off, you know, was an awesome person. And, but her life was very, very much a bubble. You know, she lived in the same house, for the last almost 20 years of her life. And I mean, her routine was set in stone. Her consistent, like, well, yeah, her daily routine was literally set in stone. I mean, up at the same time every morning, pretty much had the same cup of coffee with the same amount of creamer every morning, same little bowl of cereal, you know, same little half sandwich for lunch or whatever she did. Probably the funniest example of all the stuff that she did was her dog. Her dog was so trained that at 5:00 in the evening, it would eat, that by 4:55, that dog was sitting there staring at you, ready, because the dog knew that it was going to get fed at 5, because my mom's routine was so, like, just basic. And she worked a mile from her house. You know, her car, you know, had 15,000 miles. I mean, it just all those things that like me would drive me insane. Somebody else would drive us insane because like, oh my God, mom. And I would tell her, but mom, come travel. Let's go do things. I mean, towards the end of her life, we got her out of her shell a little bit. You know, she came to Catalina when I lived over there and stuff. But that was like a big deal for my mom to come like visit me on Catalina Island. And it's funny because, you know, there was a part of me that thought, oh my gosh, what a waste, right? And it's like, but was it a waste? She raised 2 kids and then she had 3 grandkids, and you know, she had a lot of love right up until she passed away. You know, she got to meet my wife and get close with her. And so I've kind of changed my mindset on some of that stuff where like, not everybody is going to go to the gym and work out. Not everybody's going to be a black belt. Not everybody's going to, you know, want to get out of their comfort zone. They're not going to suffer. They're not going to push it. You know, they're comfortable in their bubble. And is there anything wrong with that? You know, I don't think that's what we're saying. But it's hard, you know, it's understandable to see other people and recognize their potential and, you know, try to encourage them to exceed what they're currently doing. But then, like you said, their own brains get in the way. They start to do those things. So that's a matter of like, get a whoop strap. I don't care. Get a Fitbit, get an Apple Watch, do something that like, monitor your own data, right? Because that's just something we've talked about with the shot, where how many of our people that, I think I need it. And we ask them questions like, well, what's your resting heart rate normally? Do you pay attention to that? I don't know. Okay, well, what, you know, do you have high blood pressure? Yeah, well, you're a pretty fit person. You shouldn't have high blood pressure at, you know, 38 years old or 40 years old, and you're, you know, reasonably fit and you eat pretty well. So that's usually indicative of something else going on biologically. But in order to have those data points, I mean, you have to actually take those data points and find out what they are. So, translation to that is like, you have to know yourself. Like, you have to start getting some baselines of who you are. You know, what does your gauge cluster look like? You know, when you drive a boat, when you drive a fire engine, whatever, you know, thing hums along at 600 RPM at idle, right? You should see 50 on the oil pressure. You should see, you know, 13.7 on your voltmeter. I mean, all those numbers that you see on a gauge cluster, those are your, like, is your engine running well? Well, do you even have that gauge cluster internally for yourself, for your own body? Can you even gauge when you're on, when you're off? And do you know how to like directly correlate it to what caused that? Kind of back to my story with, I smoked a cigar, so I was a little bit off, but did it mean I didn't perform well? Did it mean that I fell apart? No, it just, I could trace that back to, put a little sugar in the gas tank, engine didn't run as good. So, if you're able to really like in your own life kind of assess all those different things for you, stop comparing yourself to others, stop trying to tell others what they need to do when you should probably clean up your own fucking room.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, dude. Cause you know me, I will forget super fast. Obviously, when I talk, I'm like, what was I saying? But what you said about your mom, right? And knowing yourself, it brought a point out of the book. And there's something that we hear all over social media, all over just all over the place. You know, don't be average. Don't be average. I wasn't born to be average. You know, that's all great stuff, right? But some people are meant to be average. That's okay, right? Not everyone. If everybody was a captain, how does that roll out? If everybody was a captain on the scene, how would that work?
No work would get done.
Exactly, right?
Fire, wouldn't go out,
right? So it's like, does that make sense?
Of course.
And so when I was,
we all have a role.
We all have a role, right? And you know, I know, I would do this, and people, you know, would ask me, you know, how to overcome things or challenges, or I'm a very big proponent on not being average, of trying to be different, of different mindset, you know, more daily discipline and putting yourself in suffering and different kind of growth and blah, 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 all the stuff we talked about, right? Like you said with your mom, it's a great point that I want people to understand that is okay if that's where you're at, but it's knowing yourself, right? Because if we didn't have someone like your mom in this world, right? Like you said, oh, was that really bad? No, it's probably great. That's awesome, right? And the book talks about that, and it talks about just in life, we all have our role in life, right? And if everyone's trying to be above average, right? Or if everyone's trying to be the boss, like, where's the work going to be? right? People need to be in the CEO role. People need to be in the captain role. People need to be in the engineer role. People need to be in the firefighter role, firefighter paramedic role, BC role, chief role, whatever it might be, finance officer role, right? You could look at a CEO and be like, well, I want to be the CEO of this company. Well, do you really? What's your daily routine? Are you disciplined? Are you a CEO of your own life? Right? Do you stay accountable to yourself? Can you run a company? What are your leadership things? Do you just want people to respect you? Do you respect yourself? Does your family respect you? Do your friends respect you? How do you talk? How do you lead as a leader? You know what I mean? If you were not a leader, how would you feel about yourself, right? So it's like the same thing as being average or not average, or suffering, not suffering. What I'm trying to say is it's okay wherever you're at. Understand that you have a role, and whatever that role is for you matters. Not everyone's meant to be a type A personality, right? Because we need the ones that aren't that, because if we're all the same, that's not good, right? That is not good. So the things I was saying were the ones, hopefully it resonates with certain ones, of if that's what you're searching for, to grow, to become better, to come out of a slump because you're meant for more. That was more of what I was trying to say, was, hey, here's some things you could do. But if it's not for you, then that's totally fine. They're just things some points I was trying to get across to maybe get some things flowing or whatever.
No, and the important part is that for people that hear it, it's like I said, you can be like mom. That's okay.
Yep.
Because I learned a lot when mom died. Well, I mean, even when she got sick, I remember how all the people in her little elementary school, in a little town in California, it was a huge impact on that little school that I look at as like, oh, it's just this tiny little place, and right, like you said, call it average, call it whatever, but because it's not, my global mindset of like, oh man, cool, all these things and travel the world, do this, blah blah blah. But my mom made a difference in a lot of people's lives. So 17 years at that same school of teaching these kindergarten kids. Well, that means that there's kids that are in their 20s that went through my mom's, and they remember her. I don't remember my kindergarten teacher, but I remember seeing like many people in her community that were adults. I mean, I remember that there was in fact, my sister just sent me something not too long ago. It was a picture at the dog groomer that my mom used to use for her dog. They still have a picture of my mother up in this little dog shop, and so it's like, so for my judgment of her bubble life, and it's like, well, she left an impression on people that weren't just her family. And so she did live a good life. She lived a big life. She didn't live an average life. She didn't live like a common, under the radar life. By my judgment, maybe it was when I was kind of blinded by some things, but, and so, yeah, for anybody that is going through those things too, it's just like, yeah, I mean, there's different levels of reaching for, being exceptional in your own life. It doesn't mean that you have to be outside what's your comfort zone to a certain degree. And I think that that's interesting that, like you said, that kind of that don't be average or whatever you said about the social media kind of attitude. And it's true, because like everybody sees all this bullshit.
Yeah.
And they think, oh yeah, it's easy, I'll just do this, or we're all chasing these things. And I find that interesting nowadays too, in our society, where everybody's worried about what's going on halfway around the world and they don't do shit in their own backyard.
Exactly.
So it's like, you step over these junkies on the street that are dying from overdoses, and, but we're worried about war in some other country. And I mean, which, it's not that I'm saying like we shouldn't care about the globe in general, but it's like, how about we take care of your house, like my own house first? My shit's all in order, then I can maybe help my neighbor, kind of thing. And then so on and so forth. It goes from there. So maybe mom didn't have such a bad idea, being that she took care of her house and her class and her dog, and so
for sure.
I keep that in mind sometimes, where it's like, when I start looking at you or somebody else in my life and I'm just like, hey, you should be doing this. It's like, in fact, there was a guy, one of my favorite captains I used to work for. He's retired now. Fuck, cool motherfucker. He worked out of Station 8 for a long time. I think he listens to this sometimes. So if you hear this, I always remember, man. He said he has lots of like great sayings. Like, I eternally live in the red is one of his, which is basically he always owes, no matter what he gives back, he always owes a debt. And then standing on the shoulders of giants. But one of my favorites he used to say is like, well, when you point that finger at somebody else, remember there's 3 more pointing back at you, kind of thing. And I know that's an old one, but he had a way of saying it that was just kind of like, yeah, So it's real easy to kind of point the finger at somebody else's lack of, hey, you need to drink water. And it's like, well, I'll bet if I look at you, there's something you're not doing every day that I could pick on you about, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for me, because I do that with my wife on water and that simple stuff. And, it's just kind of a joke now, where I'm always like, okay, did you hydrate? And she's like, I swear I drank 2 of these cups and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
Well, it's because you care.
So it is.
It's because you care. That's where it's coming
Yes.
from. It's you actually truly care.
Yeah. But it feels like judgment to people. We know that. I mean, if you were to tell me that stuff, and it's like, yeah, dude, I know. Yeah, I didn't, so it's one of those, like, it's the message giver, the message receiver. It's a communication skill. It's all that stuff. But I really think a lot of it comes down to knowing your own compass and what's your true north and because like your discipline is far more than others. And, that's okay. That's why you're going to excel in the things you do. And not everybody's going to do those things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But, I think that there is no solid single basic answer on how to deal with the day to day. We've covered it before in our Accepting Change podcast, where I love change. I don't like stagnation. I think I've kind of made an entire life out of change, and most people hate it.
Yeah.
Most people dread it. I mean, they'll fight against it even when it's good.
Yep. Yeah.
So, a buddy of mine recently, he's in a pretty high level position in a fire department, and he reached out and said, dude, I got to get the shot like tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I referred your dumb ass months ago and you didn't follow up. And, of course I was busting his chops, and he's like, I know, but I'm in a bad way. Okay. So we get him in, he gets it and all that stuff. And it's like a lot of what he's dealing with has to do with some other people he works with. And I kind of, it's back to listen to this, the Managing Expectations podcast on the SGB. Like, you're not gonna be farting rainbows, pal. Like, you're gonna feel better, but you still gotta go back to work with people you don't like.
Yeah.
So that was a conversation I had with him the other day. I said, well, what are you willing to do to change these things? What are you willing to do to make sure that the reset is going to allow you to make changes? So are you going to potentially look for another job? Yeah. Like, are you going to, or is it just a thought in your head that pops in and pops out? Like, are you gonna follow through on it and start searching and start seeing? Are you willing to relocate? Is that an option? Have you talked to your wife? Have you considered moving your kids? Like, these are things that you can do, or you can choose to go back into the same environment that got you where you were before. So that goes back to, like, if drinking's your problem, like me, why would I go back to drinking? Yeah. It's kind of simple, right? And it, as you said, it's simple, but it's hard. So
yeah, the hard things are actually pretty simple.
Yeah. The framework is.
The framework is, right? The framework
is the hard part.
Consistency is the hard part.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing, is staying consistent, because it's easy to drink a cup of water. It's easy to
when you're thirsty.
Yeah. True, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to get up in the morning, and if you didn't get a good night's sleep, what's easy is to say, I got to get up and go to work. I got to get up and go work with these guys, or I got to get up and go for the walk. I got to go work out today. I hear this podcast and they say, I got to be positive today. It's easy to wake up and be like, I'm just not going to do as much today because I'm tired. That's easy. It's hard to get up and be like, you know what? I didn't get the best night's sleep last night, but you know what? I can smell today. I actually have 2 legs to walk. You know what? Because there's people that don't have that, right? Or I could actually taste the food, right? I could actually hear. There's people that are deaf, that can't even hear the birds chirping in the morning. You can't even go down to a creek and listen to the water flowing, right? Like, there's so much to be thankful for. And in this world, I see it. I don't know how you feel, dude, but there was so much hate out there and so much negativity with just I don't get into politics or anything, but like with everyone that's involved in that, like there's a vibe in the air. You see it where there's just people are ready to just go at each other because there's so much division right now, right? And it's easy to get caught in that cycle. So that's easy. It's hard to do the opposite. To be like, you know what? Hey, I got your back today. Let's go figure this out. Hey, you know what? Let's get you a better routine. I can help you out, man. Hey, you know what, brother, sister, whatever? I know you're going through a hard time. I can't solve your problems, but hey, I'm here to help. I'll give you my 2 cents if I can. That's the harder thing to do because we all feel that same energy going on right now. Like I feel it and I hear it from so many people. So I like what you were saying about it really resonated with me because, you know, it's like, hey, if you point one finger, you know, if you're pointing one finger, somebody else, hey, there's probably 3, 4, you can say however many point back at you, right? Because we'll have something to work on. So it's like, that's for the Bible people out there. That's a biblical scripture. It's like, hey, before you look at the rafter in somebody else's eye, look at the one in yours, you know? And it's like, because we got plenty of things to work on. And going back to your mom, it's like, maybe she kind of had it right? Like, hey, but what would that solve? Well, how would that help? Hey, if you just take care of yourself and you stop getting involved in everything else, right? It's like you taking care of yourself. Then if the next person takes care of themselves, they take care of their stuff, right? The next person take care of it. But hey, it's like, you know what, Shane, I'm kind of struggling, or mom or grandma or sister or dad or whatever. I need kind of some help here, but they're worried about them. They're not worried about everybody else's problems. Now, when you come to ask for help, they'll actually have more bandwidth to probably give an opinion or help because they're not so worried with everything else. So it's like, that's actually good. So yeah, to Shane Brown's mom, we love you.
Yeah. I got a buddy of mine, we still have a joke. My mom's maiden name, her last name was Marvin. And I remember doing a Halloween one year. This was probably like 10 years ago. And a buddy of mine from Catalina was with us, just hanging out. And my mom opened the door, you know, little kids were there. And there was this little dude that was, I didn't realize it at the time, but he was like one of her students, you know. And he couldn't believe that Miss Marvin was answering the door to this house, you know, and he was just like, he just did this huge breath and he looked at his mom and he couldn't even talk. And he was like, you know, and then my mom gave him candy, of course. And then he just like at the top of his lungs screams like, I love you, Miss Marvin, you know?
Yeah.
And, so that's kind of like a running joke with me and my buddy that, you know, but yeah, mom had it right. So, anyways, dude,
Yeah,
that was good, man. I think, you know, there's been a lot going on with a lot of people, and dude, just keep up the fight and don't give up on stuff. Like, don't be too hard on yourself. Just remember that you're going to make mistakes, and, you know, find the balance, know yourself, figure out your gauge cluster, all those little cliche things we've been saying. Just whatever resonates with you, you know, like work on being a sifter with things. Don't absorb stuff. But, you know, cause like a lot of us lean into each other to help each other out and stuff and make calls. And if you're not in that headspace, don't, man. You got to know your own boundaries too. And that's back to mom. You got to know if the bubble's for you right now. Mm-hmm. And, cause, it's different, you know, like some of us are in different positions. You can spend more plates in certain times, but like, dude, I told you, me and the wife are going to the Caribbean for 16 days in June, and you ain't going to hear from me. Yeah. I'm gone. The phone's going to be off. There ain't going to be any podcasting. There ain't going to be picking up phones for Center of Excellence or none of that stuff. And I hope there's nothing that happens while I'm gone, but you know, it's like, it's about me and her.
Yep.
And it's about me disconnecting. It's, you know, like letting myself chill, you know. Hopefully I'm really interested to see what these biometrics do when I'm down there in like full blown vacation mode. And it's the first like vacation I'm going to take where it's going to be sober, you know, where drinking's not involved. And cause I mean, fuck, dude, when I lived on that island I'm going to Bonaire.
Yeah.
I lived on that island for 9 months, and we would dive 3 to 6 times a day and pretty much drink all night. I mean, we'd drink from sunset till 2 a.m. when the bars closed. And then we'd go back to, I would go back to the marina, to the boat I lived on, rack out, and I'd be up at 6:30 or 7 and back on the beach, and we'd dive. And we did that 6 to 7 days a week. And, you know, and we did well, like,
yeah,
no worries. Didn't matter how many beers we drank the night before, you know, we'd get in, kick ass, and have a blast. But, so I'm actually interested to see how a 2-week vacation it goes sober, which, you know, I'm not even like, oh, I wish I could drink, you know, none of that stuff. And I'm going to see friends that I haven't seen, and it's been 5 years since I've been to that island. And I'm going to see friends that I mean, that's our friendships revolved around drinking. That's, you know, diving and drinking. It was, they were pretty synonymous, kind of like fire and drinking, you know, same kind of thing. And so when we go down there, I'm interested to see how that goes for ourselves and our, you know, like my little whoop strap, and if my recovery, my HRV, you know, when I'm actually diving 2 or 3 times a day, but like at a recreational, just chill level with just my wife and doing stuff that, you know, like seeing some of the most beautiful dives that I've ever been on in the world, and, you know, having you know, all that stuff. It's just, I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
Is there going to be, are you going to meet some buddies that used to know you, the old Shane?
That's what I'm saying, is like that those guys were like, our friendships were predicated on,
they're all still there.
We dive all day and we drink all night. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're going to be like, who's this freaking Jamoke, dude?
Yeah. No, it's, and I already know it. I mean, in fact, it's funny, like probably my best buddy from that place. It's funny. He's actually going to be in Europe for 6 months. So we're going to miss each other. And I'm bummed because he's awesome. And, we, you know, normally every time I've gone down there, we've had a fucking blast, you know, but it was drink all night and laugh and be rowdy and be dumb boys and all that stupid stuff. But he is a great dive buddy of mine. You know, we were on the boat a lot, and then, but just ironically this time we were just, you know, ships passing at night, not going to see each other. But my other buddy, he owns a boat down there, and he's going to take me and the wife out for 3 different trips. And almost always, like, I can't even think of a time when we didn't finish a day of diving where the first thing you do is walk over to the beach bar and you grab 2, because the beers are 8 ounces down there because of the heat, right? Because if you buy 12, it's warm by the time you get down the last 4 to 6 ounces of it. So you get these tiny little 8-ounce beers. Well, if you're going to walk up to the bar, you got to get 2, because what the fuck's the point if you're going to get an 8-ounce beer? You know, you got to get 2. So the one is just, you know, you pretty much drink that on the way back to the table. Yeah. Then you sit down with the ice cold second one, and then you kind of, that one goes down in about 10 to 15 minutes. And then, okay, now it's your turn. You go up, you grab 4, and 2 for me, 2 for you. You know, and then that starts the spiral, and pretty soon the whole table's full of empty bottles. But they're 8 ounces. They're little, you know. So you know, those 20 that you count in front of you, it's not that many because they're small.
Yeah.
And that was how it was, dude.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And I'm curious for myself too, if there's going to be any, like, you call them triggers if you want, but, you know, like even desire, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's like, because, you know, oh man, it was fucking great. Go dive all day and then have that ice cold, you know, the beer we drank there was from Venezuela. It's called Polar, like a polar bear, but the Dutch call it Polar. So yeah, it was, you know, it'll be interesting to see like how that is because I mean, majority of the dive sites on that island that I'd get out and it was time for a Polar or 2, you know, or 20. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm excited.
I gotta tell you, man, like that is a hurdle, you know. Well, I wish the best for you on that. I mean, but how do you feel with anyone out there that's trying to be sober or that's going through it? Like, just honestly, would you feel bad for having a beer or 2?
Man, I don't know. You know, that's the thing is I say all this somewhat in jest because I really don't feel any stress about being down there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go out with my friends and we're going to have dinners and they're going to drink. And I probably won't get into too much detail with them because it's a different relationship I have with those people than like our fire service friends and the people like with us being open and vulnerable. But if something were to come up, I also wouldn't hide it. But that's kind of what I was saying is like, it's easy at home for me to say like, oh yeah, I don't need to have a beer. But in a place like that where it's like, dude, you're on vacation. We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary for marriage. We never got a honeymoon.
Yep.
It's, you know, it's 82 degrees every day, 82 degree water, ice cold beer is pretty nice on the beach right there. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to do anything bad. Would I feel bad? I don't know. I honestly don't. It's kind of like smoking the cigar the other day.
Yeah.
And I made the point, like, I didn't mess up. I wouldn't take that back. I enjoyed hanging out with my buddy. Right. But I also would have enjoyed it without a cigar. So the question is in the future, like, you know, do I want to do stuff that biologically impacts my body for days, you know, for the sake of what? Did that enhance that experience I had with my friend? I don't think so. I mean, truthfully, I don't know that it did.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, while, yes, I enjoy a cigar, I also would have been just fine sitting there talking to my buddy. It didn't change the content of the conversation. It didn't change me being present with one of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So these artificial things that we add on to, like, well, you need to do this in this scenario. So you're going to a tropical island. Of course, you got to have a pina colada. You got to have a margarita. You got to have a beer. You got to do, it's like, well, no, you don't. It's just like saying you don't need to eat 3 meals a day. That's just some artificial number, you know, and it's just like, cause we're all different, you know, and it's, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going into with any sort of, I have no apprehension, no anxiety. I'm not stressed out about it. You know me, peer pressure doesn't work. So that part's easy. You know, none of my buddies down there are going to shame me into drinking.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like that would make it easier for you personally. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting, man, because now it's like, that'll be a good podcast episode. Stay tuned, everybody. Shane's post.
Yeah. When I fall off the wagon.
Yeah. No, now everyone's going to want to stay tuned for the next one. Okay, we got to hear that episode.
Yeah.
Did you coming back from Bon Air 2 weeks, 16 days or whatever it is in Bon Air. Did he drink?
Yeah. Dive bubbles and beer bubbles. You know?
Yeah, man. No, it was a good one. We haven't done a podcast for, it's like, I think anything we do, man, it ebbs and flows. And sometimes, I know for me personally, I'll be on a tangent and I forget what I'm going to say, but none of the stuff we do is scripted. It's just a straight, conversation and different things that guys are talking to us about. We're trying to bring different attention to. So, hopefully you guys got something out of this one. And we'll hit you guys up soon with another one. I think we're gonna do some more for sure. But Shane, thanks, dude, for this one. Reach out to us for sure. A lot of you guys have through email. We get back to you. We've got some really great emails from different guys that have gone through the SGB, what to expect. Even though we've done stuff on expectations, it's still nice to have a one-on-one conversation or through email or text or whatever. But reach out to us and we'll help you guys through the process for sure. And you can reach me at epadgettcoaching@gmail.com.
Yeah. And this is Shane. When Eric says that he's being serious, we do get a lot. And it's funny, I forgot to tell you this. The other day I was talking to somebody that a buddy of mine is back in Maryland right now at the Center of Excellence. And he told someone he talked to back home that there are 2 guys there currently at the Center of Excellence because of the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know that.
No.
They actually went without ever reaching out to us. They told him, they're like, we heard this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they're both from different states. And
really?
They both ended up there at the same time, but you and I didn't know that because they didn't reach out. They just, something happened in one of the episodes, something that resonated with them was enough to give them the courage to go.
Wow.
And they told this guy who knows me. So that was kind of a cool thing to hear. So, if you're on the fence, it's like, just reach out, man. Like we mean it. That's why we're doing this stuff. And so, so my email is ricfirecaptain@gmail.com.
Cool. Yeah. Dang, dude, that's pretty rad. That's pretty cool. And, we initially started this podcast just for you and I to just hopefully help one person, like we've said before, but it's turned into a pretty cool deal that I enjoy doing these. This is therapy for me, man. It is. Anyone that's listening to it, it's like, how do you stay resilient? This is one of the things I do, right? Because my mess of a life, my challenges, I think I've said this before, but it's obviously helping people overcome things, and they're doing stuff without us even knowing, right? So neither of us do this for any accolades or, hey, pat on each other's back. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because I suffered for a very long time, and I don't want anyone else to suffer like I did. So I'm glad you guys are listening to this and acting on it, because we can give all this information. We can give you the books. We can give you all these little tools and tactics and strategies, whatever you want to call it. but you have to act on it. So for the guys that are actually, and even guys that aren't, maybe you listen to this one time and this isn't your time. Maybe it's a second time, third time, fourth time, whatever. These things are going to be here forever. These podcasts ain't going anywhere. So whenever the right time is for you, you'll get there. But for the ones that have been listening and are acting on it and taking the correct steps for yourself, solid work for sure. All I can ask is pay it forward. That's the biggest thing for me, right? Is pay it forward. Because your voice matters, your opinion matters, your story matters, and whatever struggles, whatever you're trying to overcome, challenge, failure, whatever it is, that would definitely help somebody else. So that's the only thing I ever ask, is if something we said helps you and you go and better yourself. I'm not saying you have to go tell people to listen to our podcast. You just pay it forward for yourself to help them out. That's all I'm saying. So that's my only wish. I don't know if you had anything else, but
no, that's well said, man.
Cool. Yeah.
All right.
Well, sweet. We're out, guys. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one.